All right. Well, good morning, everyone. It's so good to see your bright, shining, smiley faces this morning. My name is Robbie Nato. I am the Senior Program Coordinator for the Delta CCC team. And I want to say thank you for joining us for our Lumina Spark Self-Discovery and Team Training. And before we get started with today's workshop, I'm going to go over just a few housekeeping items. Please connect your video feature to avoid any background noise. Please remain muted for now. We also encourage the use of the phrase "I'm complete" to indicate when you are finished speaking. And if you have any technical issues, please feel free to reach out to me or Megan, and we're here and happy to help. The National Rural Health Resource Center, the Center for short, is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to sustaining and improving rural healthcare in rural communities. The center has served rural hospitals, clinics, and other providers nationwide for over 25 years in the following core areas: transition to value and population health, collaboration and partnership, performance improvement, health information technology, and workforce. The Delta Regional Authority and the Health Resources Services Administration's Federal Office of Rural Health Policy have partnered to support the Delta Region Community Health Systems Development Program. Through a cooperative agreement with the federal office, the center administers the program and manages the provision of services to the selected hospitals and communities. Services are provided through technical assistance, which includes various assessments, on-site consultations, action planning, and coaching implementation of best practices and adoption of key transition strategies. We are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and anti-racism, building a culture where difference is valued. And I will let you read the slide, but we also have a page on our website that you can check out if you're interested in learning more. And I will actually hand it over to you live now.
All right, that means me. Welcome, everyone. We're here to have some fun today with Lumina. You all have gotten your portrait? Yes? Let's raise hands, say yes. All right, so let's learn about that. Today, we are going to learn about what it means to be individually in that portrait. So our agenda for today, we will be looking at just a little bit of an introduction to the Lumina Spark, kind of get behind the different aspects that we will demonstrate through some activities. So this is a very active session. And then we're going to get you into some small groups to kind of reflect of where everyone's at. And then when we're done, we'll just kind of talk about how you can best show up with each other and one another using the Lumina as your guidepost. But to get us started today, let's find out who's all here, and we'll get learning who one another are. And Jill's going to take us through a fun little activity here. How many of you, before she does this, have seen the Barbie movie? No? Okay, all right. Yeah.
I really want to, if that counts.
You went what?
I really want to.
Okay. Well, my 10-year-old cousin made me go this weekend. It's not one I probably would get put on my get tired of, never get tired of watching, but it was quite good. I was kind of surprised by it. So, Jill.
Well, good morning. I'm Jill List with Hugh Life, a trainer and facilitator. I think I've done some of your Lumina debriefs with some of you folks, and so some familiar faces. So today we're going to do a quick go around, and I'm going to ask everyone to check in and to share your name, where you're calling in from, and a movie you never get tired of watching. And I'm going to start with, let me pull my list up here. I'm going to start with Lucy, then Brooke, and then Javon. So your name, where you're calling in from, and a movie you never get tired of watching.
I'm Lucy Woodard, and I'm calling in from Bradley County Medical Center. And a movie I never get tired of watching is probably Crazy Rich Asians.
Thanks. Brooke, Javon, and Kansi.
Brooke here. I'm calling in from Warren, Arkansas, Bradley County Medical Center with Lucy. And a movie I never get tired of watching, I want to say Shag, which you probably have never heard of.
No.
It's amazing.
Okay, great. Javon, Kansi, and Cassandra.
Good morning. I'm Devon Howard. I'm calling in from Community Health and Emergency Services Incorporated in Alexander County, Carroll, Illinois. A movie that I never get tired of watching.
Good.
Question for you.
I think we missed it. What was it, Javon?
Selena.
Thanks. Kansi, Cassandra, and Joy.
Good morning. My name is Kansi Houston. I am also calling in from Chessie in Carroll, Illinois. And a movie that I never get tired of watching is actually any of the Bad Boy movies.
Joy, Shonda, and Candy.
Hey, Joy Shepherd calling from Wynne, Arkansas. And I don't tell very many people this because I'm just not too proud. It's so cheesy, but I love that Titanic movie. Can't get enough of it.
You're not alone, Joy. Shonda, Candy, and Kim. Shonda, you might be muted. I can't tell.
Shonda's talking in the chat here. She's at Five Rivers Hospital, and her favorite movie is National Lampoon Christmas Vacation. That's a good one.
Thank you, Shonda. Candy, Kim, and Courtney. Oh, nope, Courtney's not here. Emily. Candy, Kim, and Emily. And Candy's not here either. All right, let's jump to Kim.
Good morning. I'm Kim Andrews from Lawrence Memorial Health Foundation in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas. And I don't really have just a single favorite movie because I guess I'm kind of cheesy. I'm a huge Hallmark Channel fan.
I love me a good Hallmark. Thanks, Kim. Emily, Stacy, and then Hannah.
Stacy. Stacy, I'm from Oakdale Community Hospital in Oakdale, Louisiana. And I would say a movie I never get tired of watching is Just Go With It.
Okay. Thank you. Going back to Emily, before we jump to Hannah, it's Emily Davis, Mainline Health Systems in Monticello. And I think that's Arizona, right?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. I can't read under the, and her favorite movie is any of the Harry Potter movies. So thank you, Emily. All right, Hannah, Jennifer, and Teresa.
Hello, I'm Hannah Odell. I'm calling from Ouachita County Medical Center here in Camden, Arkansas. And a movie I never get tired of watching is Soul Surfer, but I am going to see the Barbie movie this evening with my friends, so that should be fun.
Jennifer, Teresa, and Leah.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Pritchett. I'm calling from Washington County Hospital and Nursing Home here in Chatham, Alabama. And a movie I never get tired of watching is kind of an old classic, is Gone with the Wind.
And I'm Teresa Adams from Washington County Hospital and Nursing Home in Chatham, Alabama. And I'm kind of with Kim. I don't know that I have a really favorite. I love Hallmark, but one of my favorites that the kids would tell you is Heidi.
Aww. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leah Cross from Hood Memorial Hospital in Amite, Louisiana. And I would have to say any of the Rush Hour movies.
Perfect. Rachel, and then Penny, and then we'll do Angie.
Yeah, I'm Rachel Ortiz. I'm quality director here at Hood Memorial Hospital in Amite with Leah. And I think one of my favorite movies that I never get tired of watching is Sleepless in Seattle.
Okay. I think we got Penny,
Hi,
and then
this is Penny at Oakdale Community Hospital.
in Oakdale, Louisiana, and a movie I never get tired of watching. I'm going to give away my age, and that's Steel Magnolias.
Thanks, Penny, Angie, and then Robbie. Angie?
Penny, you did.
Penny went.
Okay. It's my turn?
Yeah.
I thought we were waiting for somebody. All right. Well, I would have to go with the Hallmark movie, folks, because I just cannot watch a movie twice without feeling like I already did it. So it drives my daughters nuts when I say, oh, I've already seen that. I've already seen that. Can't read a book twice, can't watch a movie twice, but Hallmark, even though the storyline's always the same, I still love them.
Robbie, Jane, and then Jamie and Megan.
Thank you. Again, good morning, everyone. I'm Robbie Nato from the center with the CCC team, but I'm also calling in from Superior, Wisconsin. So I am like the exact opposite of everybody here. And a movie I never get tired of watching, and it's going to be kind of weird, but also I just love it, is Twilight. I was one of those Twilight kids, but also it's so cheesy and ridiculous. And I think back to like my, 12-year-old self, like, why did I really love this? I love to just give myself crap for it. So I'm complete.
I think we have Jamie and then Megan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Goodpaster, a community program specialist with the center, calling in from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm going to say this, don't think badly of me, but it's Step Brothers. I watch that movie anytime it's on because it just is, you don't need any brains to watch it and it's fun. So
There you go. Megan, wrap us up.
Yeah, so I have mine, although so many that were mentioned already, I was like, oh, wait, that's my favorite. No, wait, that's my favorite. So lots of good ones that were shared, but the one I always go to is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Emily might have her mic working, so she's going to try to unmute and see if we can hear her real quick before we move forward.
Awesome. Perfect.
No.
Oh.
Okay.
It looks like you should be talking.
She's going to call in from her phone, so Megan, I'll make sure we get her situated for the breakouts.
If she does the pound code thing, your phone should join with your face, so it shouldn't be an issue. So if you follow those instructions as they're typed into the chat, Emily, you should be good, and you should be one person instead of a phone and Emily.
All right. And I just have to share mine because I forgot to, is one of my favorites. And I'm like you, Angie, I don't reread books. I don't rewatch movies, but Family Stone. Is anybody familiar with that one? I cry every single time I see that movie. It's a good one if you haven't seen it. All right, well, thanks for doing that, and welcome. And if we can go to the next slide, if I could have someone just quick give voice to our learning objectives for this session, I would appreciate it.
Just know there'll be lots of times throughout, not just today's training, but all of the trainings that we have that we're going to ask for volunteers to come off of mute and share your voice and help read some things on the screen and share things. So don't be shy, and please come off mute and somebody give us your voice.
The learning objectives: understand and underlying theory behind Lumina Spark. Gain a deeper understanding of the qualities of other community champions and my supervisor and how their qualities show up in their communications and actions. Understand how your strengths and weakness areas impact how you work with each other and in your healthcare organizations. Develop ways to increase the effectiveness of your team using the knowledge.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And with that, Robbie, I think you're going to launch the poll. Thank you. We'll give you guys a minute or two to do that. How you doing, Robbie?
We are at 13 of 16.
All right, we'll give it another second or two. Team Edward.
We probably aren't going to get all 17 though, because they're sharing computers.
No, I think 13 will be good. I think that's what I have for count, so.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to move on then. All right. So I am hopeful. Everyone's done the Spark assessment. So I know that those were completed. I think we have a handful of people who did not do their debrief, but most of you did. So you've already kind of gone through that journey. And so we're going to kind of reflect on that work that you did and talk about Lumina here. So Lumina Learning has 4 principles that both the personal debrief and the team sessions are built around. And it really starts with that self-knowledge, being aware of what our own preferences are, what are those behaviors that we exhibit, good and bad, what do we look like when we're overextended and under pressure. And this really is explained in your Lumina portrait with the 4 colors, those 8 aspects and the 24 qualities that are all grounded in those 144 questions that you answered. So the objectives that we just read through are really around valuing diversity and gaining a better understanding of how others. So anyhow, back to that kind of that second level really is around valuing diversity. So it is working to be intentional to understand how others have a different way of being, how they walk through this world differently than we do, and the importance of, pardon? And to really take time to listen and to understand others' perspectives. Once we've done this, we've kind of built this foundation and have created this opportunity to use Lumina then to really build an additional rapport as we continue to work with each other. And this really will lead us to that ability to co-create results by being really intentional and purposeful with our collaboration. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Angie for kind of a reflection, we're going to reflect on the model of Lumina. Thank you.
I first get to tell you why I love Lumina so much more than all the rest. So when I was doing my master's degree, I took a personality assessment course, learned, 20 some different personality assessments. And when I came across Lumina, it was one of my favorite. Why? Because it's very simple, something you can relate to easily. And if you recall, we talked about the portrait and your very front cover. If you look at your front cover, your portrait, it's a blend of colors. So it doesn't put you in a box. A lot of them will say, you are this, or you are that. You're a bird, you're a flower, you're a green, you're a red, whatever. You are an INTJ. This is a saying that you are a mixture, a blend, just like a portrait on the wall has a blend of colors. You are made up of a blend of colors. Some of us may not have very much of one color or another, but there's a little bit there and we can tap into it when need to. So that's another thing I really like and value about this. And you'll find how that comes into play here as we go through this today. Because you can embrace the paradox. In some cases, we pull from both sides of the wheel, color wheel, at the same time. And where you lean into it, that's called a paradox. I also, if you did a debrief with me, I talk about it as a Chinese finger lock. Sometimes when we're trying to pull on both sides of that, it really stresses it out. But if we just lean into it and allow both sides of those aspects to show up, we can really manage our understanding of one another, and coming from both sides, we can have a better appreciation. The other thing I really love about it is the 3 personas. Not every assessment gives you 3 personas, and we're going to dive into that later, looking at those 3 personas, because who you are with your family and friends is totally different than who you may be when you show up at work. And we'll look at how that shifts for your group when we look at the team wheel. When you come to work, you do put a game face on, and you may pull on different aspects that you don't normally show up with when you're around your friends and family. And then it does recognize that when you are stressed out, there's a whole nother person that comes out. And some of us realize that easier on some folks than others. Some of us are chameleons and you can't even tell that there's anything different, but others you're like, oh, what's going on for you, sister? Because you're showing up different right now than you were yesterday. So, recognizing what that looks like. So those 3 personas are a really important part of this assessment. And the third thing that I really, really love about it is, we're going to get to explore it, is the Spark app. It gives you your portrait on your phone. And so if you're going into a meeting and you have someone on your team that you're going to work with, you can pull up their portrait as well if they have it, or they can do a quick assessment. The phone has a lot of options there, and we're going to play around with that later today. But it's such a powerful tool, even just to remember, what is it about me that I'm showing up with right now? And it lets you see where you're overextended somewhat and lean into some of those things that are underlining to bring you back to a balance. So there's so many powerful things just within those 3 areas. But basically, the bottom line is, on the next slide, we talk about it is still based on the foundation of most all assessments. All assessments have this big 5, they call it the ocean. This measures all of those but the neuroticism, which is your emotional intelligence measure. That's another assessment. But basically, you're looking at those 4: openness, conscientious, extroversion, agreeableness are the ones that were being measured through this assessment, through all the questions you took. So with that, we're going to go into the different aspects and the qualities here, and we're going to let Jill kind of walk us through this.
All right, thanks, Angie. So for those of you who have gone through your debrief, this is this is just a stroll down memory lane. For those who haven't, this is how the tool is structured. So when we're looking at the tool, you answered 144 questions. Those questions then are grounded in those 4 archetypes that Angie was just talking about. And those, again, are grounded and framed around the 5 big personality traits. So you see the 4 archetypes that we're talking about in this tool. And so we're looking at empowering, inspiring, commanding, and conscientious archetypes. We live in all of these archetypes, but to varying degrees. I say we have sweet spots. We've got places where we just naturally sit, where that's our preference. Lumina, like Angie was saying, doesn't say you're just green or you're just yellow, you're just empowering, you're just conscientious. So we are all of those things, and we're asking people to really understand that in any given circumstance, depending on, work, home, whether you're overextended, those colors are all going to show up, and you can pull energy from all 4 of those archetypes. But again, we do have tendencies and areas where we kind of, those are our sweet spot. That's where we have natural strengths and our comfort. And so with that, there are 2 overlapping images on this next slide. And the first appears automatically with the slide. So if you want to, from the 4 archetypes, we really get those 8 aspects. So you can see around this mandala that you've got inspiration driven across from discipline driven, introverted across from extroverted, people focused across from outcome focused, down to earth across from big picture thinking. These are the 8 aspects, and they're kind of, I hate to say they're polar opposites, but they're kind of bookends. And when within those 8 aspects, they're grounded in 3 different qualities. So just as an example, if you look at inspiration driven, it's really made up of qualities that indicate that someone who's adaptable, somebody who's flexible, someone who's spontaneous, versus somebody in outcome focused, maybe, where they're logical, they're competitive, they're tough. And so those are just different personality types that we're seeing there. And we, again, those 24 qualities then make up those 8 personas, or those 8 aspects, which make up the 4 personas. If we look at the next slide, thanks, Megan, there's a very quick high-level overview here, right? So to build on this, we're going to look at those 8 aspects. So each aspect has a contradictory feature or quality. And this is what I was talking about. I hate to say it's polar opposites, but contradictory is probably a good term. And we all contain the ability to flex into both ends of these features or qualities. And we contain the ability to leverage the energy, the qualities, and the strengths of both ends of those paradoxes. So some of you may have seen a push-pull relationship in your portrait where you were both high in both ends or one aspect. So that's where you kind of naturally will sit, right? Those paradoxes. And you'll see that sometimes where you're 50% or more on both sides. We're asking you to really think about those paradoxes, because those are areas where you can really leverage the strengths and have to be cautious about the kind of the downside of some of those, outcome focused, when do we come really too driven, too competitive, win at all cost, and lose sight of being people focused. So it's all about being aware of where you sit in that continuum, where you are when you're overextended, and what can you do to leverage those natural strengths that you have. So with that, we're going to do a series of exercises that help us look at those 4 paradoxes a bit more. And with that, we're going to look at introversion and extroversion. So you can see here on the slide, you can go to the next one. There you go. So we've got introversion and extroversion are competing bookends. And what we're going to ask you to do is to annotate here for this first exercise. So I'm going to ask you to go to the top of your screen where you can see you're viewing Megan's screen, I believe. So if what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a series of statements. For every statement that you agree with or relate to, I'm going to ask you to put your initials to the left towards introversion. So in that very first column there, I prefer to take my time making new friends. If that's true for you, put your initials in that first column to the left of your name. All right, I'm going to have you go, TG, Teresa. All right, JP, I'm going to have you guys go just to the left of your name.
They can start over there if they
first.
They can.
Well, there you go. Thank you. All right. Now, next statement. I am considered a good listener. So if that's a statement you agree with, put your initials in the first open box to the left of your name. Directly to the left of your name. There you go. All right. Third statement. I work best in private one-on-one. I work best in private one-on-one conversations. Next available space to the left of your name. Next, I prefer to think through what I will say before I speak. I control when and where I express my emotions.
Did I get ahead? Is this the fifth question?
You're good.
Okay. So can you repeat that one? I'm sorry, I'm not being a good.
Sure. Nope, that's fine. I control when and where I express my emotions. And I listen to others before giving my views. Okay. Now we're going to try the other side. We're going to look at qualities that are associated with extroversion. So in that very first column, directly to the right of your name, if this is true for you, put your initials here. I am outgoing and sociable.
So I'm an overthinker right now.
Okay.
This one, it's how we truly feel about ourselves or what people perceive us to be.
Nope, this is about how you self-identify.
Okay.
All right. Second statement. So the next open box to the right of your name. I like to think out loud. It's common for me to be bursting with energy. Others can easily tell when I am excited about something. Sharing my thoughts with others really helps my thinking. And finally, I often step forward and take the initiative in a group. All right, just real quick, what's one thing that's standing out to people as you see this here now? Feel free, come off mute.
Everybody has the same qualities in both extroverted and introverted. Almost like you're in both, like you're in both realms.
Mm-hmm. Most people are showing up on both sides of the aisle. Exactly. A few people are heavily weighted to one side or the other, but even still, everybody's got qualities that show up on both sides. So if we look at introverted and extroverted, and we can go to the next slide. I would guess that all of you have an idea of what it means to be introverted or extroverted. And in fact, you probably have a sense for which of these two qualities you fall into more easily. Like I said, people kind of have that sweet spot where they naturally sit. But this exercise really helped point out that none of us is completely one or the other. In fact, we do flex between the two depending on the situation. And when I'm talking in debriefs, I often, really ask people to consider the fact that even introverts have to operate in a very extroverted world. So it's not that introverts aren't capable of extroverted behaviors and thinking, but it's not where they're energized. It's not a way of thinking that is their comfort zone, their strong suit. So how do we work with that so that we understand who our introverts are, who our extroverts are, and really learn to leverage that and be considerate of how those folks walk through the world. And so with that, we're gonna pass it back to Angie.
Right. And one thing I love about how, so this is probably one of them that we're all familiar with. You're so introverted or you're so extroverted. In most recent books, there's so many things that are coming out that the introvert, extrovert, I mean, they're recognizing that we are both of these. And I think that's very a good move in our world, that you don't have to be in one or the other. But we're going to move on to another exercise that lets us look at another set of these aspects, and we're not going to really tell you who they are. You're going to be put into a breakout room right now, and you are going to just talk about a vacation. Share how you planned one of your vacations in a most recent trip. What did you go at? How did you go about knowing where you were going to go and what was going to happen? Just what it was. Share your vacation experience. So we'll do that, and we'll have about 4 minutes or so. Well, each of you, 7 minutes total, right, Megan?
We got 5. Yeah, if we got 5 minutes in the breakout with the cool down, we should be good.
Okay, so each of you get a chance to share with your partner, and it may be where you two who are in a room together are just going to be talking to each other, not in a breakout room. So share your vacation experience. That's all the more we're going to say about that. Awesome. So it looks like we're all back with some smiles. So hopefully that was a little bit of fun. Let's hear some differences that you all noticed from each other when you were in your breakout rooms about how you planned your trips. Who's willing to give us some insight?
I'll chat for a second.
Okay, well, Leah and Rachel and Kansi.
I can go first. I was in the room with Kim. So Kim likes to go to the beach. She likes a beach in Alabama, but she's very family oriented. So I told her she was a good mom because she really wants to make sure all of her family can go. So if her family can't go, she doesn't go by herself. So we were talking about ways she could maybe still go and maybe take one child at a time, and then maybe all could go. But I thought that was really thoughtful of her that she really tries to make sure that all of her family is incorporated. That was very sweet.
All right, thanks, Kansi.
I'll go, Cassandra, and I was in the room with Brooke E, and we kind of have similar thought processes when it comes to packing.
Okay.
And both of us don't like the dreadness of packing and then getting home after the vacation and unpacking. So I thought that was really cool that we identified on that note. And she's very, she doesn't like doing trips, but and wants somebody else to plan and stuff. And so that's kind of opposite from me. I like to plan trips, and so but not too overly, but just I like to plan. So I thought that was interesting that we both shared something in opposite on one end and then the same on the other.
There you go.
I'm complete.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Rachel and Leah, you've been off mute, so let's hear what you had.
Yeah. So with Miss Rachel, she was telling me how she went to Canada because both of her sons play baseball, so they're always at a ballpark. But she always tells me every time, even when this wasn't a conversation, we talk about stuff, and it's always her husband planning. So he take care of everything, and she just like basically shows up, and I was like, well, that's nice actually. I mean, I love that.
I need to be married to him, Rachel. That's who I need to marry.
We're all stealing Rachel's
Well, it's got to
husband.
be around a ballpark. That's the only. That's the only thing.
Stacy and
put him
Penny,
through.
do you
What's
have
that?
some? Stacy and Penny, do you have something different? You're off mute.
No, we kind of discussed our vacations, and we're kind of like pretty much the same on both, like to have everything kind of planned out.
All right. Well, let's
And our
look at
husbands are opposite.
what we're talking about here. We got inspirational and discipline driven is what we're discussing here. So if you look at the aspects that we're really talking about, there's the one that's really spontaneous. Glad that the husband is planning it. That's a-okay. Just tell me when and where to show up. Very informal, doesn't matter. Just tell me what to put in my suitcase and I'll show up ready to go. Where the other one would go absolutely berserk if you popped on a plan like that you said, I'm not going to tell you where we're going to go. We're just going to go. The discipline driven would just like, but I need to know. I need to know if I need warm clothes or where are we going? What time are we leaving? When will we be back? All those kind of things are important for the discipline driven. And you might see yourself falling in some of those people focus that sound like as well, which we'll get to here in a second. But discipline driven is very much needing all the details, happy to do all the planning, making sure they know where the hotels are. I think about a trip that my daughter, who is a math teacher, which makes sense that she is a discipline driven. We're headed to Montana on during COVID, and she's like, Mom, you can't just drive out there and think you're going to get a hotel. I'm like, why not? And she was so right. We had to call like 4 different hotels before we found a hotel that was open and available for us. So I'm much more that spontaneous, and having someone like that saved us from having to sleep in our car that night. So there is a balance act that's sometimes good to have. And so recognizing when you have those inspiration driven, what they bring to the process, and when you have a discipline driven, what can you lean into and appreciate about those folks. So we are going to go on to another aspect. We're soon to have a break, but hang in there with us. Jill's going to talk us through one more set of aspects.
All right. So nope, block it out. There we go. Thanks. All right. So moving on, we're going to take a look at an image here in a second. And we're going to just see it for just a couple of seconds. I want you to take note of what you see, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit afterwards. So with that, Megan, we're going to let them see it for like 30 seconds. So we're going to try our hand at annotating again. So what I would like you to do is put 1 or 2 of those things that you observed, annotate those onto this screen. If you can type into the white part of it, that would be great. So just add a few comments about what you saw. So again, we're going to go to the top of the screen. There we go. And grab text, and all right. And Megan, I don't have access to move these around, so you're going to have to do it on your own. Unless, Robbie, you want to give me co-host, and then I can help.
Sorry, my
Ready. Thank you, Mother Jill.
My mouse isn't moving over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not letting me. Oh, Megan, looks like you got it. So is there anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to put a comment onto the screen? All right. Hearing none.
We have a few in the chat: military, helicopter, and Outlander.
Ah, okay.
I added all of those, but Outlander, I just saw that one, so I can add that one real quick.
Okay, thank you.
Now that might be a series that I can watch over and over again.
Tom does.
Don't get me started. Oh, it's amazing.
That sounds like a break conversation. All right. Megan, that last one at the bottom, can you move that one over to? I don't know why it won't let me. And then okay. So ideally what we would have here is on one side of this image, we would have, well, I'm trying to think how to talk through this right now because it's, let's talk about what's up here. Let's talk about the difference of the comments that are up here. What is the difference, say, between blue skies with white clouds and protection of one of the seven wonders? What's the difference in those statements? Come off mic, guys. Let's go.
One's talking about weather.
One's talking about what, Rachel?
Weather.
Okay.
Like the weather, blue skies versus rainy.
One is very basic and literal versus the other one, I guess, is still literal, but it just takes a little bit more in depth. They thought about what the scenario was versus just immediately what they saw.
There you go. So that's what we're looking for here. So some of these are very down to earth thinking, very concrete, very basic, right? Blue sky, grass, helicopter, stones, green grass, rock formations. Where the big picture thinking comments are those that dig a little deeper. They're looking a little bigger. So they're telling a story. They're kind of, so protection of one of the seven wonders. Military helicopter. So we're starting to interpret and dig in a little bit deeper. And that's the type of thinking that we're looking at right here. So we can go to the next slide, Megan.
Yep. Let me just clear out the
Sure.
annotations.
So what we're talking about here is that big picture thinking versus that down to earth thinking. So if you're that down to earth thinker, you want to see the evidence before you can make change. You're really interested in the facts, the details. You're less interested in the theory. You really need the data. You probably tend to be more inherently cautious, looking for that, again, that function over design, really grounding yourself in the facts and the details. Whereas if you're a big picture thinking, you've got lots of ideas. You want to see, you're interested in the vision, in where are we going with this, and what is going to happen, and what are those changes, and what if we do this, and what if we do that. They're very conceptual thinkers. So these people really need that space to have ideas, to think, to be visionary, to be imaginative. They tend towards being more radical. They're about the design. It's about the process. They're excited by that process. And so for those of you who first saw things like the blue sky, the rocks, the factual information, these are folks who are really grounded in that down-to-earth thinking. For those of you who wrote things like interpreted it, and I saw a military plane, or it was a rescue plane, or you were thinking about the environment, you are tending more towards the big picture thinker. Those are those what if thinkers. So before we move on from there, any questions about these last two? Okay. At any point, just jump in and ask for clarification or questions. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Angie.
And Jill, I'm not seeing where we're having a break, but I'm going to tell everyone we're going to get through this next one and we're going to take a short break. So hang on.
Sounds good.
Hang on with me. We're going to talk one more aspect and then we'll go on a break. So we are going to do a scenario here. And in a moment, you're going to go in breakout rooms to discuss the scenario. So you all are a team of coaches and you have a hockey team that is going to the season championship. Your team has been invited to this in Canada. So in order to go, though, you have to limit your team to 18 players. The problem is you have 22 players on your team. So who are you going to take? So you're going to discuss amongst your team, and we'll ask for a couple volunteers to tell us how you came to your conclusion of who you would take and how you would make your choice and selection of who's going to get to go on the trip to this national championship. Okay, any questions before we put you in breakout room? You're only going to get a couple minutes to make this decision. So what do you make your decision based on? Are you ready, Megan?
I'm ready. Just
let's
2
do
minutes.
it.
All right.
One of you want to pause the recording? Ready to talk?
That's fine. Okay. I can watch on TV.
All right. Do we got everyone back? It looks like. I think we got a full screen. Let's hear it. Let's hear a couple examples. Who did you take? How'd you make your decision?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Miss Emily.
Okay. So we talked about, I'm kind of blunt. So I feel like my first step would just kind of flat out ask the whole team, like if there was anyone that would voluntarily not go. That would be my first step. Just flat out asking them. And then Rachel and Leah said, they mentioned, which I don't know how hockey works, but they mentioned that you would for sure want like your starters, like for each position, like your goalie and your whatever the players are, the positions.
Yeah.
And then just kind of go from there.
We made a joke on the call that we would call Miss Rachel's husband because he's a coach. So he can tell us what to do. But yeah, basically, I really like how Emily started off saying that she would just be blunt and ask the team if one, if they would be willing to stay and take one for the team. And we always said there's always that one player that will, say, well, I'll just stay. And then it can set a trend.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Who had another example that might be a little different? Teresa and Jennifer?
Yes. One thing Jennifer mentioned was looking at those if any were hurt. then they may not go. We did talk about those that wanted to go. Jennifer talked about the goalies, the backup. She also talked about the best performers. And of course, we had to use an analogy from Alabama and how Jalen Hurt was actually benched, as a quarterback in the national championship. So those best performers, Brooke mentioned those that were consistent, had not missed opportunities. And then I thought if all else failed, of course, we're going to let the seniors go and then kind of go maybe in some ranking order if we still had one or two that we still had to call out.
Okay, awesome. And Kim, you came off mute. You had a thought?
Well, something that we talked about after the obvious talent issue is just their attitude. Maybe who's had, the best attitudes during the season, been committed to come into practice and kind of coming at it from that viewpoint.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and throw a little wrench in the scenario here. And if we had all 11-year-old children that were part of the group, how would this might change your approach to this? Anyone? Anyone would change who you would bring?
We would just pay the extra money.
We all pay the extra money. They're all coming.
Yeah. So some people are going to be very stick to their guns and based on facts and who's the best players. Others are going to raise money and make sure all get included. And what we're talking about here is, next slide, please. Yes, those are those people-focused folks. We are going to empathize. We want everyone to go. We want to make sure it's fair to those folks. And even some of your scenarios before we brought the kiddos in, you were seeing that you were talking in these aspects. But the outcome folks get right down to it. What's right, who's the best players, who's injured, get down to the facts, and that's how we approach things. So there's a difference between those two approaches, and we all oftentimes see them. This particular one, I like to think about those who type out an email, and I'm guilty of this. I will type out an email, and anyone with me here, and then all of a sudden realize that you didn't say like, hello, good morning, how are you kind of thing, and you go back to the top of the email and you add it. So those that are forgetting to put that nicety stuff in there, it's probably more outcome focused than those that kind of like start with, how are your kids and, what are going? And by the way, now that I got your attention, I'd like to bring you into understanding what we have going on here and just all nice. Some of us have to be reminded that, oh yeah, I need to be nice. Not that I'm not a nice person. It just isn't first thing in my mind. So with that, we have different aspects, and sometimes it takes more for us to get tough with folks and get to the bottom line of things because we may be more people focused. Others may just not want to move forward with any decisions because until we have everyone included. And there's a nice balance between those two. And y'all have seen that play out, I'm sure, in all your work. Oftentimes healthcare, we have a little bit of both going on there. My experience here, I really want a doctor to be outcome focused, right? I really want them just to bottom line it. And so sometimes we'll find folks that are into healthcare because they're very people focused. They want to help people. And that can be a clash sometimes. And so recognizing those differences and how can you approach those? So we'll be bringing in how to build rapport with all these different aspects after a bit. But before we go to break, we want you to get into the Splash app. And we're going to take a 10-minute break. Go ahead and flip the screen to the next one. When Jill brings us back after break, we're going to be exploring this. Sorry, one more. If you have not yet downloaded the Splash app, go ahead and get that started during your break. We're going to come back to that. We are putting some things in the chat box that you feel free, if you get back from break early, go ahead and download those things as well. But we're going to give you 10 minutes right now. So let's take you to 32 minutes past the hour, wherever you are.
And I did put the links for everybody's Lumina debrief or Lumina portrait QR code is in there, and the links to the Apple Store and the link to the Google app if you haven't uploaded.
All right, any questions? Otherwise, back at 32 after the hour. Oops.
Thank you. All right. So now that we have kind of a basic understanding about the 8 aspects, and actually, wait, did Angie get to that last one? Megan, did we do all of the? We did get through that. All right, perfect. Okay. I just want to make sure that we had all 8. So now that we understand about those 8 aspects and how they relate to their opposites, we're going to spend some time reflecting with each other in small groups. All right. So we are going to be using the Spark app. So if you're able to download that onto your phone, that's going to be the best way to move forward with this. So if people could just give me a thumbs up from their reactions and let me know that you've got the app either on your phone or on your computer so we can see where we're going. I see 1, 2. And you guys can come off mic. Okay, I see 3. Is anybody having trouble with the app?
Lots of thumbs up coming in through the chat.
Got it. Okay, thanks. All right. So, okay.
We're at the point of scanning the code. And is that the one on page 41?
Like r/?
From
Okay,
our report?
All right, give me 1 second and we're gonna get there.
Okay, all right, sorry.
All right. Nope, you're fine. So and what I think, was that Teresa?
Yes.
Yeah, was referring to is in the chat, I put in a link to everybody's QR codes from their Lumina portraits. So we're going to get there in a minute. But what this Spark app allows you to do is download that splash from another person, which is what Teresa is referring to. So this is a great tool when you're working with your team to see and understand how you can best communicate and work together. So it looks like most of you have the app downloaded. If you have the app, go ahead, pull it up. If you can't get the app and you have your portrait, that'll work too. So once you have the app pulled up, you can take that PDF that has all of those QR codes on it, and you can upload your Spark or Splash, and you can also upload everyone else's who's on the cohort here. So what I'm going to ask you to do then is once everybody, I'll give everybody another minute, but I'm going to ask you to upload your QR code from that Splash app. And then we're going to dig a little deeper into those different aspects that are highlighted in the app. So I'm going to ask you then to press the plus icon at the bottom right of your screen. And once you hit it, it should look like this.
Can I just pause so not everyone's trying to download all the QR codes? Because right now we just want you to look at your own individual.
Your own, yeah.
And when you go into breakout rooms, we'll have you add those people who are in breakout room with you.
So if you press that plus icon at the bottom right of your screen, this is going to reveal those 3 personas. And so again, let's recall, what are those 3 personas? We're talking underlying, everyday, overextended. So with our underlying persona, we're talking of kind of who we are at our core, our natural way of being. Our everyday persona is that persona, this is how we show up at work or in our community or church or even sometimes in our extended family. And then the overextended is, what do we look like when we're stressed? What do we look like when we're being less than effective? So once you've done this, your splash should display like the upper right image. And we've got somebody coming in. Okay. What you can do from here now is explore any of those 8 aspects that we've been talking about. And you do this simply by clicking on the bubbles at each of the 8 aspects around that mandala. And the other thing to really pay attention to is understanding and knowing that your splash is going to change as you move from aspect and persona to persona. For some of you, it's going to stay the same or relatively the same, but for many of you, it is going to change depending on the persona you're looking at. So once you've selected an aspect to look at, you're going to see that there's a brief narrative related to that particular aspect. And you'll also have the option to read more. So to finish with that aspect and then move to another aspect, just simply click Done in the upper left-hand part of your screen. So the other thing that Angie was highlighting or pointing out is that we're going to ask you to upload someone else's Spark into your app. And we're going to do that through those QR codes. We're going to do that in breakout rooms with the partner you're assigned to. So does anybody have any questions about what we're going to do next? Everybody's in, everybody's playing. I'm seeing some head shaking. Okay. There we go. All right. So now that we have the app, we're going to show you how to compare to each other, right? So when you open the app, you're going to see your name in the upper left-hand corner and a box on the right-hand side that says compare. So clicking on that is going to allow you to share your splash or scan a code of someone else's splash.
So there's a comment that they can't scan the QR code. So what we have found is that you kind of got to block out whoever you're trying to scan around it because it picks up the ones next to it. So if you either make it bigger on your screen or you print it out and then cover up the ones next to it, are a couple ways of doing it. I'm old school, don't know how these QR codes work, but that's what I've been told.
Yeah, sometimes if you just make the image bigger so that it isolates that QR code, that often helps. So
And
again, go ahead.
I just want to ask, who is iPhone? That's maybe someone that called in. I don't know.
It's Shonda, she says, and she just
Okay.
put in the text.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that her phone goes with her into the next breakout room, that I put the right person in.
Should do we want to change her name so we know who it is?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Can you show the QR codes again?
Yep, I'll put them in there.
Okay, thank you. All right, so once you hit compare an option, all right, to share your QR code, this is going to appear on the top of your screen, and this is going to allow you to share that splash with other folks. So for our purposes today, we've provided you with those QR codes. So everybody that's in your cohort, you should have every single one of those today. So if you click at the bottom of your screen, then you should be able to select and scan a splash code. So once you get into your breakout room, scan in your partner's code. And I guess at this point, can everybody, there you go. I'm seeing Angie holding it.
It's going up to the top right where it says compare, and that opens up the option to scan a splash code, or you can share your code. So you also can do sharing of your own with your partners if you QR codes aren't working. But basically, once you hit this button at the top, the compare that you see on the screen, hit that button at the top, it will open up a compare. You hit continue, and then it gives you that screen that looks like that.
I'm also going to drop in to the chat
instructions in there.
You did already? Okay. All right. Has everybody practiced uploading at least one additional QR code to their phone? Anybody having problems doing that?
Trying. I see they're trying. Teresa and Jennifer are really working hard over there.
I see that. And it doesn't matter who you've uploaded, as long as you can get one of those splash apps to load onto your compare. See, laughing, I don't know if that's good or bad. I tell you what, is there anybody, maybe this is easier, is there anybody who hasn't been able to do it?
Jennifer can't get hers. We're struggling with hers. I've got mine, just my personal one. We haven't gotten to compare yet, but Jennifer's code, we just cannot get it to cooperate.
Okay.
Okay.
Try loading someone else's.
Okay, where are we getting? I'm not seeing anything on my screen. Where are we getting the QR codes from somebody else?
So I just put it in the chat box. The most recent thing that's in the chat box is a PDF that you download, and then on it has everyone's QR code.
Oh, okay.
You got to save it to location on your computer, and then
okay,
you can open it from there.
Anyone else not having success?
I'm working from my phone, so I can't scan it and have the app open at the same time. I can only share mine.
So when you get into breakout room, you'll be able to share it with others.
Okay.
Or they'll be able to put theirs up on the screen. So when you get the comparison, you'll see a lighter version. So the lighter version is me, and whoever I'm comparing to is going to be bolder and brighter. So that's when you know you've got them being shared. And then we're going to have you explore by going on those little highlighted buttons around the ADAS.
Right, the little bubbles around the mandala. So we're going to navigate the comparison the same way that we navigated that initial look at yours, your splash. So you click on those little bubbles, and that will move you around. And then, like Angie said, the muted one will be yours, and the bright colored one will be the person that you're comparing to. And you can scroll back up to in the upper left-hand corner and repeat the process as you want to move around the mandala. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms again. you're going to have 10 minutes to kind of share, upload if you need to, share those, share your QR codes with each other and talk through what you're seeing. Play with it for a little bit. So anybody have any questions before we put you into breakout rooms? All right. You ready to go, Megan?
Yes, I am.
All right. We'll see you guys in 10 minutes. All right. So I think everybody's back. So real quick, I'm hearing feedback.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Okay. Just we're not even going to do every room, but who would like to, share one thing that stood out from their conversation?
I can go first. So I was in a room with Javon, and it looks like Javon is more flexible than I am. So that was interesting. I also think Javon thought that maybe the app said that she's a little bit more extroverted than she really feels like she is. So maybe there's a chance for her to find more voice that she's scared to put out too. Like we were both finding that out about ourselves. So this is a nice app though.
That's always seems like a surprise for people when they view themselves either as introverted or extroverted, and they realize that they've got lots of qualities on both ends of the spectrum. And it's kind of, how do we show up during the day, right? What do we need to process information? How much time do we need to have to take things in, to consider things, to weigh our options? And how do we re-energize, right? So we could spend our entire day living as extroverts, and by the end of the day, we're done. We just need to regroup. So it is a this and. How about somebody else? What else stood out to you from your conversation?
Emily and I realized that our splash was very similar, with the exception of big picture thinking. She was able to do that a little bit more than I was. But we also made note that we are very extroverted in our personal lives with our spouses, with she as a child, with my mother, just the people that are absolutely the closest with us. But in office, with a little bit outside of our inner circle and with our supervisors and whatnot, we're able to tone that down a little bit, and we don't express our true personality 100% of the time. I don't know if we're just mindful of that or self-conscious a little bit of talking too much, or what it may be from growing up, but we just thought that was unique.
Okay. How about one other?
This is Brooke. So I was with Lucy, and she's my cohort in all of this. And I just thought it was interesting that we are very similar in a lot of ways, and in the ways that we are not, we had already identified that. So, and then I also thought where it compared Lucy and myself, that I put more faith in intuition. I told her, I said, I think that comes with age. Because I trust my gut. And, when you're 19, you don't know what your gut's saying yet. So I just thought that was interesting.
It is. I think that it's kind of a this and as well with this, with the app and with this tool. It's like there's some things that we see and it's like, absolutely, I totally see that. I totally get that. And then there's always that one or two things that you go, really? I don't think so. And that's when I encourage people to share their Luminas with other people, and to see how other people see that quality in you. And it's like, oh yeah, I see that in you. So it does help us to get a deeper understanding of ourselves. And so as we look at comparing these even deeper, I'm going to pass it off to Angie, and we're going to look at what you all look like collectively.
So yeah, what I'm going to do is go ahead and share a screen to put this in motion for a minute, Megan, then I'll pass it back to you. All right, so this is you all at work. And what I want you to look at here is the circle that you see here is the weighted average. So when you look at a team and you put it all in the Mandela, it averages out where you all are and it will give you the weighted average. So very much people focused. But what I think is really interesting always is how do you change? So this is your work face that we're talking about. So remember those 3 personas that we're measuring. So this being your work face, watch how it changes when we put you back home in your most natural environment. Ready for this? Boom.
And can you slide your screen up a little bit?
I have to go up and down in order to make it go.
Yeah.
So it changes to very outcome focused. I'll let it go again so you can see the difference. You're off to work. Boom, you become very people focused, a lot of going down to earth and discipline driven. So when we're at work, we may become overextended. What do you suppose happens there? So you can see how people shift. So on your QR code, Jill has added these 3 screens so you can kind of take a look, but I'm going to take you a journey one more time through this just to show you. The combined persona, when we do that one, it is looking at an average of these 3 personas. But your underlying persona really has you as very outcome focused for the most part. But look how many of you move over to people focused when I take you to work. And then if we go into that overextended, which is when you have enough on your plate already and you're about ready to blow a gasket, this is where people go. A lot of people lose that outcome focus and we gather together all in a little pod here of making sure everyone gets along. Anyone want to see it again? Well, Megan, let's go ahead and have you put it up on the screen. If I can get it to stop share here. So this is the combined persona. You'll see the initials here with everyone on it. The dots are really small, but you kind of identify where you're at. The next slide will be that when you're at home persona. So that's your underlying persona. And to Brooke's point, you know, this comes with age. One thing that we know about personality assessments, your underlying persona is probably who you are and not going to change a lot. The work persona, so the everyday persona, that can develop and that might change depending on your work. And most certainly, so the next slide would be your everyday persona. So as work duties change and as you have to flex for the job that you're in, this can change. And it's most certainly we can have control over our overextended, the next slide. Because our overextended is how we react to the things that are around us. And so you do have some control to bring in those underlying personas to kind of help you balance this back out. So you might lean into, as we saw the very first slide or second slide in this deck, the second one showed us very outcome focused in your underlying persona. So you may lean into some of that and let go of some of that people focus when you are very much had too much and you're stressed out. So you might put some logic to it. That a lot of times comes with the outcome focus. So that's one of the areas that we like to look at. We're going to give you a few minutes. Actually, we're going to put you in breakout rooms. And I think we're going to put 4 people in a breakout room. And we just want you to answer some questions. There's a document that's being put in the chat right now. Taking a look at those different ways that the team works. We want you to notice what you're seeing on the team Mandela. What are some places that you've noticed you having some energy? So hopefully you're going to be put in a room with someone you work with. What happens when that synergy is there is one of the questions we want you to answer. What happens when that synergy is not there? What do you notice? What are some gaps that might be in the team? And then what are some qualities that might be missing in the team? One thing that we've noticed that, you know, big picture thinking and down to earth when we were doing that. I was telling Megan in the chat that you guys are a lot of down to earth thinkers, but not very many big picture thinkers, right? And so what happens if we don't have big picture thinkers? What might be some of those gaps? And then how might that impact the people that you work with or the people that you're serving? So we're going to give you about 15 minutes, I believe, in the breakout room. Is that what I'm seeing on my screen? Yes. Just to discuss these questions in your breakout room. And again, your QR code has those 3 mandalas that we just were showing at the bottom of that sheet.
Those of you who are on a phone and can't see the screen, if you're in a breakout room, one of you folks on the PC, if you can share your screen, and that can help you all with this, facilitate that.
And Angie, do you want them to have the worksheet to fill out here?
Yeah, I think Jill put it in the chat.
I put nope, that was me jumping ahead to my section. I put the questions into chat.
Whoops.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were helping me out, Jill.
Sorry.
There we go.
All right, so that worksheet has the questions on it. It's a forced copy, so you can have your own exploration and keep it for yourself. But just kind of jot some notes down for yourself and answer these questions as a group. Explore these thoughts with one another.
All right, off you go.
So we had in room 1 with Brooke, or I'm sorry, room 2 with Brooke. We can maybe start with that group. Go ahead and ask your question, Angie.
Okay, so we're going to have you all report out. Just, what did you talk about here? How do these team dynamics kind of play out? What considerations are you maybe now gonna move forward from this session with some better understanding perhaps? And what might be some of our recommendations that you might have as you continue to work together and do your work as community champions? So each room just kind of, share what you discussed around these questions. And so Brooke, your room, and whoever would like to speak for your room.
I'm going to ask that can't see maybe speak. I'm transitioning to my phone and got to finish this up in my car.
Okay.
I'll get back on.
Thanks, Brooke.
Problem. So Javon and I were in the room with Brooke and Lucy. So I think both Brooke and I found that so Brooke is more flexible than Lucy. Lucy likes structure. So Lucy was thinking that maybe she needs to be a little bit more like Brooke. Brooke needs to be a little bit more like Lucy, so that they keep team synergy. And then for Javon and I, it also said that Javon was more flexible than I am, which was both interesting because I'm the CEO for CHSD, and then Brooke she works HR, and we supervise the community champions. So we both thought that was interesting that that it said that, and we were also looking at, I thought interesting for me is that when I get overextended, I become very extroverted. So I didn't know if that means that I'm really like, okay, you do it, you do it. But we were also talking about how I feel like I have some trouble sometimes delegating out. So I'm holding on to a lot that I probably need to let go. And so those were some things that we discussed, and sometimes if you're micromanaging and trying to do everything yourself, then you do lose team synergy, and you're going to have a problem. We were talking about how you lose the big picture, and not having a lot of big picture thinkers mean that you lose sight of the focus of what the team is supposed to be doing in the first place because you got so many other little things going on. So those were some things that we discussed.
Excellent. Yeah, looking at, not having the big picture thinkers, sometimes maybe you get really narrowed into what is just known as instead of open to new ideas. And the fact that, you go overextended and maybe lose some of that people focused when you are in that mode, people may have what's going on, because normally you're maybe a lot more chill, and just recognizing those kind of differences when you are in that overextension, and how to use the people that are on your team to balance you out. It may be that when you're overextended, you need to find some of those folks that can have a little more patience, that are showing up more people focused at that time. And that's when you delegating things to folks can help you kind of balance that somewhat. So exploring that is always a good aspect to have as far as bringing some balance into your workplace and to yourself, quite frankly. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Jill, what room is next?
4. And that would be Cassandra's room.
Okay, Cassandra and group. What are some things you guys observed?
You got 5 of you in there. Lots to contribute.
Just 4, just somebody is in twice.
Oh, okay.
I think we were all a little surprised at our own assessment of introverted versus extroverted. I think we all thought we were a little more of the other than what we actually scored.
So were you showing up on which side?
Mine says introverted.
Okay. And Cassandra, I see you're trying to talk there.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, we were very surprised on how, that's why we talked about how different and same we were on a lot of the stuff, and surprised on the extrovert and introvert, and having the debriefing with Jill explaining like it's not such a bad thing or a good, it's like you're not always one thing or another, that how much stuff changes. And so we all agreed that it was, some things were surprising, and how do we change to make sure the synergy always stays on, make sure the team is always working together for one common goal. Like the synergy has to be, everybody doesn't have to do the same thing at the same time, but working towards one common goal to make sure the synergy stays cohesive and everybody's working to that one common goal, mainly is what we talked about.
Yeah. And the fact that you showed up more introverted than extroverted, you can be both and show up in both ends, right?
Yes.
It may be that at work you just are more of playing a role that you're more introverted. And Shonda, I would be curious to see if maybe when you are at home with your family and friends that extrovert is a higher area, perhaps for you.
I think personally that is how I am.
Mm-hmm. And it may be one of those things that you've just learned in your workplace, that you listen first, then make decisions. You don't act out and you don't speak out. You wait for information. There's lots of things that go into play with that, and that's why I like these 3 personas, because you do flex and you do what you do. You do what you need to do to get along with one another, right?
I kind of always considered it like knowing your audience.
Yeah. And the person who is super extroverted and they dominate a room. And sometimes in working in community work, that's really, you have to scale that back. Speaking as a person who is very much on that outside, I am the Chinese figure lock with introvert, extrovert. And people look at me like, there's no way you're introverted. I am. But I really bring it out sometimes when I need to, and sometimes it's too much as well. And so playing to who your audience is, Shonda, that's exactly right. The more you know about how you operate, the more you can tap in, or tell yourself, hey, I'm showing up really extroverted here. I know I got it in me to take the charge here and say what needs to be said, because on my everyday it's there. And so we talk about how to tap into that if the team needs it, to your point, Cassandra, about really bringing where the team needs to go. Yeah, good reflections. All right, Jill, who's up next?
That would be room 5 with Emily, Hannah, Rachel, and Leah.
Who found her voice? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So we kind of talked about like the big picture thing, how if that's missing, then there would be little gaps in between. Another thing we noticed was our supervisors are, so for me, I know I'm at people focused for everyday persona, and then my supervisor is at outcome. And I think Leah discipline driven, and then
no, I was people focused and
people,
then
yes, yeah,
down to earth.
Yes.
And we thought that was so fun.
Yes. And then another thing that we liked was that Leah mentioned she never moved from people focused
in any of the personas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we thought that was neat.
And challenge.
Yeah.
Leah, do you get misunderstood a lot of times when you are really stressed? The person that never moves, you don't know. There's folks that definitely move, and then it's really easy to tell when they've had too much, and you can read the room. We'll be talking about that in a bit. But you're like a chameleon, and we don't know where you're coming from today, and we don't know when we need to scale back or bring you in along the way. So, yeah, and to your point, Emily, about the big picture thinking, it's not that you don't have those folks here, it's just that that's not their preference.
Right.
And so as you go through this learning journey, we talk about ways that you can include those big picture thinkers in conversation and in activities, and the way we proceed in bringing out different techniques of facilitation to really bring people in from all around the wheel. So yeah, awesome. Hang in there, Leah. It's almost lunchtime. All right. What do we got left here?
We've got our last room is room 8 with Stacy, Penny, Teresa, and Jennifer. Somebody's talking.
This is Teresa, and I'll let Stacy and Penny, y'all feel free to jump in. Unfortunately, Jennifer's still having issues. So I think her phone needs some work, but we spent the first little bit of our time, unfortunately or unfortunately, trying to figure out the app and how to compare, and found some neat tools. And we talked about how we compare to each other. And then we got on to the questions. So sorry, we spent more time personal than we did questions, but neat app with a lots of it. And we noticed that probably the 4 of us have a lot of similarities, probably more similarities than differences. The gaps that it would be in our team is we're really not the inspiration driven. So we're going to need some help with that and the big picture, but lots of similarities and lots to explore. And Stacy, Penny, I'll put it off to you to see if there's anything you'd like to add to it.
I just wanted to say, yes, I do agree with what Jennifer was saying. I'm sorry, Teresa. But definitely people focus was one of our big strong suits for all 4 of us.
Yes, the app is really great in identifying if you want to have someone that's a big picture thinker and that's not your aspect that's you're strong in. By clicking on that little dot on the app, when you show up with someone like that, you can identify how you need to work with them best. Talking things out and things like that will be suggestions that are on there for working with that person. So with that, that's a great segue. So thank you all for going through that. Jill's going to go into a section here on our last part of our training today about building rapport. So if that's not your aspect that you are strong in, how can you learn to build rapport with those folks? And we'll go into this more in our next session, but here's a sneak peek and kind of a teaser to get you down the road and how to build rapport with those folks.
And Megan put a Google Doc into the chat, and I put in a PDF talking about some aspects of building rapport. So if you can open those up and have those ready, that would be good. Because now that you've had the, now that you have the ability to compare each other's splashes, we want you to spend some time helping understand how you can use that information to help you build rapport with your team, with others beyond maybe just some suggestions that are in the app, knowing that the app is just kind of a quick look. So if we look at the next slide, I'm sure that all of you, or almost all of you, have someone who sits on the opposite side of the mandala from you, right? And I'm sure, and it's not just the people we work with, right? These are the people in our lives. These are people we're in relationships with. These are our friends, our family. So there's times where we've butted heads with that person, or sometimes we butt heads with people who think just like we do. So if there's, two people in a space who are really driven, really opinionated, really competitive, they might think the same and they might walk through the world in a very similar way. But unless they're, if they're coming at it with different ideas, now we got a lot of head butting, as opposed to people who kind of let it go. It's like, it's not that I don't have opinions, but I'm really flexible and I can go in a lot of different directions until push comes to shove. And then when I get overextended, then it's like I'm done. So now I'm not flexible anymore. But understanding who we're working with, who we're dealing with, and building that rapport really starts with understanding that different people have different underlying needs. And so those underlying needs, if you're really blue and you really need that written evidence, that proof, that data, those visionary folks, it's all about having an opportunity to be creative, to vision possible futures, to look ahead. With those folks who are super green, it's, we really need to understand the why. It's really important for us to be heard, to feel like our opinions are valued. It's really important to us to make sure that other people are brought along, that we feel like people are also being heard and understood and cared for. When you get into those folks who are super driven, right? Then it's, what's the bottom line? It's all about competing. It's about getting it done. It's, they're really confident and they really push forward and they really want to know what's in it. Why are we doing this? What's in it for me? So each of us has these underlying needs, and really understanding kind of where you're coming from and understanding where others are coming from is really critical to building that rapport. So now that you have an idea kind of where your team is or your cohort is, because we've talked through that a little bit, let's think about the best ways to really meet people where they're at so that you can help to bring your groups, your teams, your family, your relationships forward together. And so let's look closer at each one of these and think how best to work with a person who you believe might be more one color than the other. So who in this space really now feels like they're really blue? Who's got, okay, Rachel. All right, Rachel, can I have you read the blue points?
Yep. Give them, you talking about from the screen?
Yep.
Give them time to think and send a follow-up in writing. Provide agendas and readings ahead of the meeting. Ask probing questions and drill into their concerns.
Okay. And so it's about creating that space and having the consideration and the forethought to know that there's people that we work with that need that information ahead of time. And if you want the best from them, you're going to give them that information. You're going to give them the agenda. You're going to give them the materials that they need before you ask for them to respond. All right, who in here really feels like they sit in that green space? Leah, go ahead. Could you read those for us, Leah?
Expect a slower and more thoughtful energy. Ask questions that show you care about them, the work at hand, or others.
And I think Angie talked about that a little bit earlier about how sometimes you got to warm people up. If you just walk into some people's space and it's like, I need this, I need that. Did you do this? What are we talking about? Blah, 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 blah. They're overwhelmed. They shut down. They need a little love. They need to connect a little bit. They need to get grounded in that relationship. So, can we, see now how those two people, might be in conflict with each other? All right. So here, now we've got that yellow, that, and that big picture thinking. So who here feels like they sit in that space? Cassandra? All right, go ahead. Could you read those for us?
Keep your discussion lively and entertaining. Get them talking. Ask open-ended questions. Let them know you appreciate them. Recognize them.
Right. And how about that red? Who sits in that red space? Anybody feel like they sit there?
I'll go.
Okay.
Get to the point quickly. Be quick and direct. Ask them to summarize what they like and don't like about your idea.
Exactly. Who's got an example that they could share of what that looks like? And Teresa, maybe you'd be willing to give us an example of what that looks like to just get to the point.
Well, I have a hospital board meeting at 2:30 today, and our board chairman's emailed me and wants to talk. So it will be just that, trying to get to the point. What do we want? What do we need to do differently? He and I both are on the same page, so I don't have to do all the formalities of, hey, how are your day? What's going on? And then, then I'll just summarize it. So this is what you want us to do or not want us to do. So.
How about that big picture thinking? Can somebody give me an example of where that shows itself for someone? Good or bad?
Conducting who? Did somebody else?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. What I just read, the top one.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a group meeting session, make sure you read your crowd and some people are not, they give you that look like, what kind of meeting is this going to be already? So you already know you have to be very, very attentive to your crowd. Make sure you know who you're talking to and get to the point, but get them talking, asking them questions, and let them know them spending time with you and them taking a day out or hour out of their time. We appreciate them, you spending an hour to find out XYZ. And let them know how much you really appreciate them taking the time out.
So it's about creating that space, right, Cassandra, for people
Yes.
to share those ideas, to kind of share their vision and their thoughts with you.
Yes.
And, there's good and bad with that, right? So in my household, I pull a lot of yellow. So it's like, what we could do? Well, we could do this and we could do that and and we could do this and do that. And my classic saying is always, how hard can it be? Well, I have a lot of people in my household and people that I work with that'll rein me in and say, yeah, no. I mean, so it's that balance, right? We really need people on our team who are going to help us drive through to those outcomes, who are focused, who are driven, who keep us on track. And we still need those people who are visionary, who help us to think outside of the box, who can look down the road and have that long-term vision. So it's the plus and the negative. It's like, how do we balance that? How are we intentional? How do we know where we sit in it? And how do we respond to other people on our team?
Yes.
And so that's kind of that in a nutshell, but we're going to put you into breakout rooms and we're going to ask you to look at that document that Megan put in.
There is a document for this. That was the last activity. This is just having a conversation.
Oh, this is okay. My misunderstanding. So we're gonna just have you go in there because we're down to the last couple of minutes and just throw them in maybe just for 3-4 minutes, Megan. And have you guys respond to these 2 questions.
Yep, you get about 1 minute per person to share because we want to wrap up and make sure that Rural Health has time to do their closing as well. So off you go.
Now that I'm thinking about it, we all back. All right, Angie, take her over. Bring us home.
Yeah, so just maybe one takeaway from your conversation. If we get a couple people that want to have a voice on how this is all come together for you.
Well, we said that for me, what is one communication that I respond well to, and that's face-to-face communication. Like, so I can see you, I can see your beautiful smile, the way you look, and seeing if you're in good spirits to that day or whatever. And so that's one communication that really does well to me. And the other one that doesn't do well is the one that I don't see you. So if I don't see you, it's kind of hard for me. I just like to be present. I like for the presence of one.
Absolutely.
Period.
Present of your presence.
The presence of your presence. I love that.
Let's hear from one more.
So Hannah and I talked about how we respond really well to like positivity, encouragement, like when someone compliments your work, just positive vibes. And then we both agreed that we did not take like micromanagement communication well for someone that like just kind of hovers and like you want to be able to do your job and for someone to like offer support, I guess.
Absolutely. So a lot of varieties in the way we approach things and what we need from each other. And we'll continue to explore this in future sessions. But for right now, we're going to call it a wrap, and I'm going to turn it over to either Jamie or Robbie to take us home for the final bit here.
Robbie, can you share your screen? Thank you. Okay, so lots of brain power used today, so I'm not going to use up too much more. I just want to do some reminders of what's coming up. So on August 1st, we will be meeting with our wonderful Hugh Life folks again to talk about capitalize your capacity. And then on the 3rd, we will have a mandatory Q&A. It'll just be center staff and you all just doing some post-learning review. August 20th, 22nd, 29th, and 31st is Conversations That Matter. That is a boot camp with Hugh Life. So those will build upon each other. September 5th and 7th will be Q&As following that for a review. And then the summit in Memphis, and we'll get to see you all in person. So if I sent out an email, if you have not gotten registered for that, make sure you do, and make sure if you have trouble getting hotel rooms. I know I got an email from one of you about that. I have a follow-up. So if you had trouble with that, shoot me an email real quick and I have a follow-up for you all. And then we have our regular Q&A times on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So stop in with any questions you might have. And it's a really good way to connect with folks. And also, please reach out to us if you need anything as well outside of those Q&A times. Robbie, next slide, please. And then lastly, just as a reminder, as some of you may have noticed today, it's kind of difficult with these learning collaboratives to participate via phone or tablet. So it's really important that you sit down at a PC, especially for Capitalize Your Capacity and the conversations that matter, and that you're joining via a PC with a camera and a microphone. I also would suggest that if you have separate PCs and desks, that supervisors and champions connect from separate ones so that we can have full participation individually. And next slide. And then that's all of our contacts. So if you need anything, reach out to any of us. We are here for you. And I want to thank you all for your time. And I hope you all have a great day. If you have any questions or need anything, reach out.